So I was talking on a speech the other day, and one of the topics that came up was self-awareness, right? If you could get this down, Pat, this one thing, this key concept, your relationships with people skyrocket. It's only one concept, and people think this whole kind of every sort of relationship that you deal with, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a girl you're attracted to and you want to go up and talk to her, whether it's a girls that you know in your social circle, whether it's your homies you know in your social circle, whether it's a business dealing, it all relies on this one thing, which is called self-awareness. I think this is the biggest key and biggest hack for you as a person. If you keep improving your self-awareness, it's going to bleed into social awareness, to build rapport better with people, to have this kind of building a friendship from acquaintance to friendship to best friend. Whether it's a girl, you meet her, you actually progress that forward instead of being hit by roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. It's self-awareness that hampers that. And it could be a plethora of different things. It could be how you don't read social cues very well from people, whether you stand too close to someone and you can see they flinch and they become uncomfortable and you do not calibrate because of that, whether you say something uncomfortable and you don't read that people are uncomfortable in the situation. This one key, you start to tune that better and better and better, you will see your relationships absolutely skyrocket. Now, I'll give you a story. So when I was a kid, there was a road rage incident and I found out that someone very close to me could be very potentially violent. And from that moment on, I was, put in this position where I used to monitor every single micro expression, every sort of expression, every sort of tonality in the voice, every sort of kind of mood shift, every sort of vibration or energy that I felt coming off this person. I would become hyper aware. And some people have this, and I say, become more socially, social awareness. And I bring up the topics like, you have to have empathy and sympathy for other people. And people, they take that to the extreme. Well, this is what happened with me. I was hyper aware of any sort of acute thing that used to happen. And to the point where I would manipulate my body, manipulate my personality, manipulate myself so that this person didn't fall into, say, like an angry phase or, a disapproving phase. And so it also taught me a huge benefit of being able to read people, being able to put yourself into someone else's shoes, whether that's how they perceive you, whether that's how you can perceive them and what they're feeling. It's whether you might tell a joke and you can tell by the way people express themselves with their body language, their subtle communication with their face, their non-verbal communication, maybe even their verbal communication. These subtle hints are whether they're comfortable, they're uncomfortable, they liked it, they didn't like it. And it's kind of this whole, you're not judging them, but you're just watching what the communication is. Everyone says in communication, you have to listen. One of the most important things is that you listen to people. And I'm like, that's fantastic. One of the greatest things that you have to do is actually watch them, is watching what people do. It's all great to listen to what they say, but watching them is much more valuable, because again, when communication comes down to it, a lot of it is done through non-verbal communication, which means it's not spoken. So in social awareness, you've got to be able to read what sort of emotion that these people are going through by not having them say, I am sad, I am happy, I am this, I am that. You're not going to get that when you're dealing with people in the real world. You're not going to be in a business dealing and someone comes up and says, I really don't like the way that you said this word or you did this and, it made me feel like this. That's not going to happen. You have to kind of almost assume this. And you can say, Sam, isn't this assuming a lot? And I say, yes, you are assuming a lot of things when you're dealing with people. You're assuming what type of emotion you are. And you can sometimes be right, sometimes be wrong. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes you can be wrong. But what you end up doing is when you start to watch people, you start to recognize what they're, kind of demonstrating, what they're displaying, is that you get a thing called pattern recognition, is where your brain actually sees enough of a result to draw a conclusive, sort of assumption based on the evidence it has. So if it's seen as sort of a micro expression, say you tell a joke and you see someone do this, like that's so subtle, this thing, you notice, okay, well, maybe they didn't like that. And so this is what we're really talking about. Being able to be not reactive, but to actually be observant of where people are. a lot of the time you can fall into, as I said, one phrase where you become super reactive based on their, sort of emotions, their feelings and everything like that. So you also have to overcome that in terms of getting self-aware. You got to learn when something is really kind of bothering someone, or it's something that, it might be bothering them, but if you kind of continue on, you get them to open up, and maybe it turns into a better style of conversation, where, if you talked about hypothetically, so if I talked about with a girl or someone that I'm interested in, or someone I'm dealing with business that my family separated, it may trigger something in them like, oh, like they don't want to talk about it. But then again, you never know, if I keep persisting on it, I'll bring it up a bit later, it allows them that, it's enough safe space where they can kind of feel like to open up, and maybe they have something to open up to. And you never know what can happen in sort of like that. But self-awareness, one of the key things that I get a lot of people in my mentorship to do is watching people. Watching people is the greatest thing that you could ever learn. Watching how they move, watching them, how they speak, watching how they interact. In this one, the reason I get this, I'm leaning forward. I bet you even watching this, you're probably leaning back. That's a style of body language. That's a style of me being intense in the camera and you being relaxed and receiving it. If I started to go like this and I started to kind of like lean back, you would, again, maybe hypothetically lean forward. That's a style of communication. That's a style of non-verbal communication. So we are always in these loops, always in these kind of, in this rhythm, always in this kind of patterns in which we do things. And it's your job to figure out, oh, I've seen this pattern before, maybe in telling this joke, maybe telling this story, maybe just talking to these people, the way I present myself, people are either liking it or they're not liking it. One of the greatest things is that you can test all these different things on different people. You can go up and test. It's exactly like Kanye right now with his 3 Donda launches of the album. You saw in the very first one, put a bunch of songs out, people loved it. The second one, put a different array of songs out, saw what the audience liked, what the audience didn't like. The third album saw what the audience liked, not the third album, the third tour, saw what the audience liked, what the audience did not like, and then from there calibrated to the final product. So this is what you can do with your interactions. You can see when maybe you're a bit more loud or you're a bit more expressive, how people, kind of react off that. You can be a little bit more quiet and kind of like unsure of yourself, and see how people react to that. Start experimenting, because this is how your brain is going to be able to pick up these patterns, pick up this kind of repertoire of knowing how people perceive you, as well as you feeling and you going, okay, what is this person feeling? When I say this or do that, what are they feeling? Not in a judgmental way, but just an observational way. You're never going to blame yourself. If someone rejects you, the best thing that you can do is never blame yourself. Sure, it might be your responsibility, it might be your fault, it might have been the way that you came off, or you stepped to them incorrectly. I talk about being, stepping to someone, it's being able to present the sample of your personality congruently to yourself, and whether they like it or not. So that means you step to them properly. But, again, sometimes, the best thing that you can do is never blame yourself and just be like, oh, well, maybe something happened at, their house, or maybe, something happened to them. It was a terrible kind of thing. Or for me, I look at myself and be like, well, maybe it was something that I did. I don't be like, oh, I suck at this or that. I just go, oh, well, it's interesting. So it's interesting. I may be able to maybe increase my voice a little bit. I might have talked to the person, been a little bit too quiet, a little bit too passive, and I thought, stuff that. Let's go back to assertive. Hey, how's it going? Oh, nice to meet you. Ooh, I like that. What's that about you? Ooh, I was about to wear that dress just in this. Oh, nice to meet you, Steve. Oh, blah, blah, blah. What do I do? Oh, I'm a social dynamics coach, blah, blah, blah. And I be assertive, Sometimes I'm not always on point. I'm not always socially calibrated. And so I continue to improve my self-awareness, be able to read other people, be able to feel the emotions that they're feeling, be able to feel the feelings that they're feeling. And these are all assumptions, as you know, but you can definitely tell when someone's upset, someone's sad, by the law of state transference. So you can feel those kind of feelings. It's becoming a little bit more in tune with your feelings and the way that you demonstrate those. I know when I'm feeling a certain type of way, I get very quiet, or I get kind of a little bit, I don't put much eye contact. I kind of, do those kind of things. So when I found those things in myself, when I've looked at other people and they've seen the exact same sort of, the exact same kind of demonstrations of those expressions or that emotion, that body language, I know exactly what that person's feeling through, my repertoire of knowing different things and that pattern recognition. So I implore you to go out and start watching people, start looking and start seeing what in which they kind of demonstrate an emotion. They're happy, they're sad, who's talking more in the environment, who's louder in the environment. And, you can do this with a pair of sunglasses. You don't have to look. And again, when you're looking at people, know that they're going to be, if you're looking too long, you're staring at them like this, it's like they're going to get weirded out. So you only do little glances, and this is a way you can cultivate a better self-awareness by watching other people's conversations. Don't eavesdrop or don't do anything like that, but just watch them. Watch how this person might be leaning back, talking, how this person might be a little bit more fast-paced and fidgety, learning the pattern. When we go into a great analogy that I said is that I heard the other day on a podcast was that when we walk, with someone, we either do two things. We either pull them back to our pace, or we calibrate and we go to their pace. And that's exactly the same that's in conversation. That's exactly the same. That's called frame, putting frames on different people. So, all these different things. I implore you to go research a little bit more. I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more topics on this, but self-awareness is such a key thing that you can implement into your interactions and become more self-aware about yourself, how you are presenting yourself to other people, how you are, giving them the sample of your personality when you might do a cold approach and talk to them, whether you're introducing yourself to a business colleague or, a speech or anything like that at work. I implore you to learn how to present yourself the best of your abilities, and if it's great. If it isn't, okay, move on, learn from the process. Don't blame yourself, as I said. Just learn from the process and keep going. And then from there, you start to become a little bit more aware of socially, of what the dynamics are, what the kind of the vibe is, what kind of everything's going on. You get better and better and better at it. Because you are starting to your reticular activation, your RAS is now a little bit more aware. Your focus is now a little bit more aware of how you present yourself to people. You just do this and it will improve your relationships dramatically. I see a lot more people on the selfish side thinking that the world revolves around them and that they they don't calibrate to where people, where people are at pretty much. They're emotionally or spiritually, or they don't calibrate whether a joke hits another person and they're like, oh, and they don't calibrate that. They don't apologize, sorry, it's just my humor, it's a little bit weird. Anyways, and then you continue on the conversation. They don't calibrate like that. They they might test on the joke more and more and more. And then it's like, well, bro, I didn't laugh the first time. What makes you think I'm going to laugh 6 times later? When you're still on it. That's a bit of self-awareness. Learn the dynamics of how two people interact. Learning the dynamics of friends, just watching some people is one of the greatest things that I cultivated for myself, and I'm able to read situations, read rooms, read people, where they're at emotionally, where they're at during their night, how much energy they have. Just by the pattern recognition that I have seen over my years, it's that, it hasn't taken any more time. I've just read people. I might be sitting down at a table with a dinner and I just watch the waiter, how enthusiastic they are, how much energy they're coming to the table with, or anything like that. Or I'll be sitting at a bus stop and someone might be engaged in their phone. I just might watch. So I just start to watch how humans behave and watch how people interact with other people, and it builds a better self-awareness for me. It builds a better social awareness. And that was the one thing that has really, really improved my results and really, really skyrocketed me to that next level. So I implore you to go check that out, and then I will be seeing you on the next video. Peace.